Christopher Musa has warned against treasonable offenses and foreign interference in ongoing unrest in the country. Following a high-level security briefing with President Bola Tinubu at the State House, Abuja today, General Musa said once peaceful protests have been hijacked by criminals, leading to looting in some states. Musa condemned the appearance of foreign flags during the bad governance protest, calling it a treasonable offense. He repeated the military's commitment to democracy and sovereignty. He also made a pledge that security agencies are making efforts to restore peace and order.
2 hours meeting with Mr. President, we explained to him in details the current situation on ground since the riots have started. And what we realized is that, yes, initially people said it was a peaceful riot, but we have warned against it because we realized that there are individuals that are willing to take advantage of it to cause mayhem, and we can see clearly what has happened since it has commenced. Criminals have taken over, a lot of looting, a lot of stealing and all sorts happening. And besides that, we're also aware that I'm seeing, all of us have seen it, where some foreign flags have been flown within the sovereignty of Nigeria, and that is totally unacceptable. We are warning in clear terms, and the President has also said we should convey this, that we will not accept anybody, any individual flying any foreign flag in Nigeria. That is treasonable offense, and it will be viewed and treated as such.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by Dr. George Agbakahi. He is the Southeast leader of the Tinubu'S support organization and political and public affairs analyst. We also have Professor Abiodun Adeniyi in the studio with us. He is an Analiys news analyst and professor at Bayes University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let me start with you, sir. So there was a security meeting held earlier today in view of the ongoing protests. And the outcome was that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, addressed the press, and he talked about the sovereignty of Nigeria. He also talked stuff about protecting democracy and treasonable offenses. What do you make of that tough statement from him?
Well, I believe protest, with peaceful protest, as a matter of fact, is one of the characteristics of a democratic system. But in circumstances where it has become violent or it has been hijacked by certain individuals whom I call hoodlums, then it is no longer a protest. What really happened in the past several days, which led to so many deaths, wanton looting and destruction of both public and private properties, it is very sad. You see, the president of this country, President Bola Tinubu, spoke to Nigerians yesterday, and to me he made a very endearing, speech where he said he was really pained by the loss of life as well as the wanting destruction of properties, and he did commensurate with individuals that lost loved ones, so, and in the final analysis, he was able to reach out to the protesters by telling them to come for a dialogue, that he believes dialogue is the only way to resolve all these anomalies. So in respect of the position of the Chief of Staff, I think in every democracy, when things start going abnormal, like what happened in the past several days, I think the police, it is their duty in the first instance to work on civil issues. But at some point, when the police are unable to handle the situation, the military usually come in. It's not only in Nigeria. I remember in the US, when there are issues of this nature, the military also come out to assist the civil authority, assist the police in resolving the abnormalities.
Okay. Prof, let me come to you. The Chief of Defense Staff, he did talk about foreign interference in Nigeria. And one has to wonder, the army or the police also have been unable to defeat terrorism, banditry, kidnapping for many years in this country. And now he's talking about foreign interference. How do you see this playing out? Is the army able to do anything about it or to, defend the country?
Oh yeah, I think we may not be able to say in absolute terms that they've not been able to defeat Boko Haram or terrorism, banditry, kidnapping and all of that, because if not for the efforts of the military, efforts of the security agencies, we probably may not be able to sit where we are now. If you remember the frenzy with which Boko Haram started, they were close to obliterating critical sections, and regions of this country. Yes, the military was challenged, I remember very clearly, and we all could remember. But after some time, of course, they took the battle to them, and we started having respite. So I think by all means, it's a continuing struggle. Remember also that these fellows came in with a different kind of tactics, guerrillas, scorched earth tactics, that the conventional military was not immediately used to. But of course, they re-strategized, and that's why however we want to look at it, they still deserve commendation for their efforts, considering the sacrifices they have made over the years. And of course, like Doctor said, yes, we're in their times now. We're told there was going to be a protest. JAT was propelling the government to make some fundamental changes, but the protest has unfortunately degenerated. It's now becoming riots, and we've warned severally before that there's a thin line between a crowd, gravitating into a mob, and of course, from the time of the Roman Empire, Sena the poet, remember, his experience with the Roman mob. The mob is always anonymous, always feeble and fickle-minded. They hide under that immunity, to wreak havoc. And we are seeing it happening, which is absolutely uncalled for. And the sad aspect of it, again, is the treasonous calls that we are hearing, including, the invitation of some foreign powers through their flags. That, yes. Yeah, which is actually disheartening, really. If the protest was just tailored towards what the original callers focused on, well, it will have been salutary, because protest is part of democracy, and the point has been severally made that it's an inalienable right of citizens. And of course, I'm not surprised that the Chief of Army Staff the Chief of Defense Staff, I beg your pardon, is making this warning. If he's not doing it, who else will do it? It's somewhat reassuring, really, because we need all of us to be all hands to be on deck. We do not want advantage takers to cash in on the situation and wreck and bring about mischief, because 25 years of democracy still means that there's still hope. Right. It's a work in progress, and on that note, guys, you will have a truncation. No matter how we want to look at it, effort is a continuous effort that we just have to elevate or emphasize, as the case could be.
So let's stay on this foreign interference for a bit. You did, point to it when we saw that some, young people in the north had the flag flying. But for centuries, the African continent, African countries, including Nigeria, have, been dealing with interference, directly or indirectly with world powers in our affairs. Sometimes there is a collusion between them and middlemen within the countries that they operate in. So what is General Musa talking about? Foreign interference has been ongoing. It probably will continue.
Well, I think that one of the main objectives of the military is to protect the territorial integrity of this country. And Section 24 of the Nigerian Constitution, talk eloquently about desecration of Nigerian flag or even flying another country's flag. It is unlawful to even do that. So what General Musa is saying, there are certain intelligence that they have, which you and I or Prof do not have. So they must have seen certain things that made them believe that things may have to go out of hand. And truly, in the Nigerian context, protest has always been problematic. You remember vividly in 1965 protests during the Western region. It was pretty problematic and a lot of people died, people were killed, government buildings were burned. When you come over to 1978, during the Analiys Go, I remember vividly I was in secondary school then. During the Analiys Go, when there was hike in university school fees, you know, there was the same thing, burnt houses, everything. People were also killed. Then you come over to 1989, during the structural adjustment program. I think that was during the regime of General Ibrahim Babangida, you know, which led to unbearable suffering from Nigerians. There was a protest which led to death. In 1993, there was the same during the democracy, during the election of Abiodun. And very recently, you know, during the NSAS protest. So a similar thing happened.
Doesn't that indicate that there has been successive failures of government over the time? Because there is a reason for protest. It doesn't happen for the sake of protest.
Yeah, but it all depends on the circumstances. In the case of the current protest, we are all aware that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, just came into power barely a year plus ago, you know, and for the past 1 year, he's been trying to lay the foundation and the structures, you know, of the economy. And just like he spoke yesterday, there has been a lot of strides. He has made a lot of achievement, you know, especially when you, and most of the achievements are also woman-related, you know, especially to the youth, like the student loan, NEL fund. Currently, there is about 45.6 billion naira, which as of now, you know, a lot of youths are benefiting from that. There is the youth investment fund of about 110 billion. Some of them are benefiting from that. Look at Smidan, a government agency, you know, about 200 billion naira is there for the youths to benefit from. So I think the problem we are also having is in respect of dissemination of all these information. Right. So I believe the government also need to do a whole lot of work, you know, to disseminate government policies so that these youths will understand and know how to cue in.
Okay. So we'll come back to what the president has achieved or what they're doing. But let me take you to Bangladesh. I'm sure you've been following developments in Bangladesh. The Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has fled the country after the people overpowered the government. Initially, they had asked her to resign over sustained protests. She refused. Eventually, she had to flee. Reports said that between 90 and 300 people were killed during this protest that led to her leaving the country. When you look at what is happening in that country, it's similar to the frustrations that Nigerians face, because Bangladesh and Nigeria have parallels. Don't you think so?
Well, it's also very important for us to understand the context within which we operate as a nation. Our system, our society is slightly different from the Bangladeshi society, and of course, the reasons for the protests are slightly different, irrespective of the economic undertone. But overall, we need to also understand that, you know, there should be a limit to protests in a fragile entity like Nigeria, like in Bangladesh, you know, where there was no limit. We've seen what has resulted in Bangladesh. But what's going to be the after effect of our fleeing, you know? Will there be peace? Will there be progress? Will there be development in Bangladesh after she abdicated power, after she left power in the manner in which she shouldn't have left, you know? We need to also be concerned about consequences. In our own situation, yes, it's still being managed. We are still containing it. We are a multi-ethnic system, you know, very fragile at the level of ethnicity, religion, and of course, every other classifier and divide, which is why sometimes we plan A, and of course we think of getting B, but we do not get B, we get Z and of course that's what the outcome of this protest is now looking like. And that's the point we're making, really. Yes, we know that the government has a lot more to do in terms of engagement, in terms of assurance, just so we should not lose focus. Because if you look at it generally, protesters all over the world, are often, at some point, they degenerate, they become slightly unreasonable, even though I do not want to be abusive. Of course, we are seeing what happened. We saw what happened in January 6th in the United States a few years ago. We're seeing what is happening in the United Kingdom now, where they are very destructive, acting on the basis of misinformation. And of course, we have seen Bangladesh, in Bangladesh too. In Sri Lanka, we saw it some years ago. And of course, in Kenya too, nearer home in Kenya, we saw it, of course. We saw the havoc that they are wreaking. Those are not the kind of parallels that we want to draw in our own system. We want to be much more positive that this one, will rather lead to some more rewarding outcome, not something that is disadvantageous to our collectivity, our progress, our development as a nation. So
while we seek for positivity, like Prof said, this also speaks to leadership. Let me draw some parallels. So we have a large population. Bangladesh, they have 171 million people. We're a lower middle income country. They are also lower middle income country. We're developing, they are developing, they're economically challenged, we are. And they have a very young population as we do. All that is happening, whether in Bangladesh or some other countries, speaks to leadership. Do you think the leadership here is actually getting it, or they're just making political statements?
Well, I believe in the first place, there is no iota of comparison between what is happening in Bangladesh with Nigeria. They are totally different. Mind you, that lady, the president of Bangladesh, she's pretty authoritarian, unlike what we have in Nigeria that plays
Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister. Yes. She's pretty authoritarian. And she has been in power for probably up to 12 years, if not more.
But the point is about bad leadership and economic challenges, poverty, hardship among the people. That's why this protest, begin, to come up.
In that particular perspective, I agree with you that the economy in Nigeria is not that great currently. But it is also important for us to understand how we came to this particular point. Truly, before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, the economy was almost bleeding. The economy was already almost battered. And not only now, this started right from 1999. The economy has not been that great. Listen, for example, the extrication of the fuel subsidy, as well as the obliteration of the multiple exchange rate, according to the president, was very necessary for us to get this country back. Listen, during the last administration, even prior to the previous one, what they are doing in the foreign exchange market was a mess. That's why you see the former central bank governor, where he is at this point. It was the bane of corruption in this country, coupled with the fuel subsidy. Those were the bane of corruption. So the president was courageous enough to say enough is enough.
Right.
Nigerians are aware that it is not going to be easy. We all know that. But with time, based on some of the policies that the president has enacted, things will get better.
Okay.
Things will definitely get better. What he requires, what is patience. He needs some time to be able to get it right.
So, Prof, the president finally addressed the nation yesterday.
Yeah.
And in addition to what he said about, very bad policies in the past that is affecting today, well, you asked for the job, so you have to get on with it.
Yeah.
But he addressed the nation yesterday. Do you think that this would change the tide?
Oh, well, I think it's the answer is completely still in the womb of time, but of course a process has started. He has engaged us, no doubt, and there have been reactions and counter-reactions. A slew of opinion have been around town, some satisfied, some dissatisfied, And of course, there are still areas that we still expect him to cover. But I made the point yesterday that where you are in a position of leadership, citizens they are not likely to look at what you have done, but what you are still to do, so which is, citizens are practically like Oliver Twist. They keep asking for more. And the challenge is on his part to continue to look for ways of satisfying the populace, particularly in this time around. And what is their primary concern this time? People are talking about hunger, high cost of living, high cost of governance, etc., etc. Maybe the next engagement should focus on these specifics.
Yes, I was coming to that. Yeah. We didn't hear about the cost of governance, reducing the cabinet. Was it something he should have talked about and acted upon? Oh yeah, there were issues that were concerning, because in the form of feedback, things that resonated, has been resonating with a cross-section of the populace. There are issues that you should probably have addressed directly or indirectly. But we want to be hopeful that he has called for dialogue, for engagement. Perhaps in the next couple of days, we will see him talking to these items, as the case could be, Constance. Is there anything you would have loved to hear that the president didn't say yesterday, as an APC member that you are?
I believe the president's speech, it was pretty compelling. It was pretty compelling. Not to everybody, though. That's why we are in a democracy. Definitely, some people will not like the speech, and some people will like the speech. It's just like an election. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic group, with different political parties. That's why you've seen some people, there has been some news report of some political motivation in respect of this. But I don't want to go into that. That's why I said that the military, there are certain things they know that we don't know. There has been smells of political motivation in what is going on. Because if you go to, is it in Kaduna or Kanu, you will see some PDP stewards. I saw some pictures in the social media. I don't know if you people were able to see it. Some PDP stewards that were involved in this protest, directing people to cause mayhem and stuff like that. So that is the point. But I believe the president did well. At least he has asked for dialogue, which he previously asked before the riot started. When the dialogue comes into play, then they will be able to sort out the fundamental issues. I think it is a step in the right direction. The president is a pretty, compassionate individual who has the interests of this great country at heart. I believe he will be able to resolve all the issues collectively with the protesters. Let's talk about what the president said concerning people that are promoting offensive materials online against a section of the country. Said there is no place for that. This has been happening in Lagos State, where he governed for 8 years. Yeah. Do you think the president ought to match his words with action by looking inwards to his own team to see if there are people doing that, then they should be shown the door? Absolutely. He should pull all stops, trying to prevent any kind of hate speech, any kind of bigotry, ethnicism, classism, nativism in our system. And of course, I made the point earlier that we're in a fragile multi-ethnic system. Everything that we do should be things that will make us rise above our difference. And if we have people trying to remind us of those differences through the instrumentality of any kind of media, whether social or digital, cashing in on the fact that, those spaces, can be clandestine, and because they are psychopaths, they are closet nymphomaniacs, trying to shred us apart, whatever the law can do to apprehend them, of course, we need to see those apprehension, those prosecution, and those sanctioning, because our system is fragile. This should be said, can be said for the umpteenth time. And of course, when you are managing fragility, you need to be tepid, you need to be careful so that you don't bring about destruction. So it was okay that he mentioned it, very commendable, no doubt. But we need to, like you said again, we probably need all actions, all hands to be on deck. Whatever can be done, really, no matter how hard that it is, it should be done, to nip this or to deal with those who are perpetrating this line of this kind of behavior or this line of reasoning, as the case could be, Constance. One of the criticism against the government is lack of transparency, lack of accountability.
So with the president's speech, do you see that yesterday? I mean, people were hoping that they would see, you know, timelines and specific things said about how open and more accountable the government will be going forward.
Well, with all due respect, the current government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is one of the most open government and accountable in the history of this country. Look at what happened during the pregnant.
How so?
Look at what happened during the pregnant period of the administration, when the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, you know, was extricated from office. You remember there are other presidents in this country where there are malfeasance during administration, and those people still served. The president is one person who does not condone anything irregular.
She was suspended but not fired, and there's still no new minister for that ministry. What is actually going on?
Because investigation is still ongoing, and
Since
she
then?
has not come back.
Right.
She has not come back.
So how long will the investigation go on so that a new minister will be appointed for the ministry?
You know, investigation takes time. And the EFCC, I believe they are doing a good job in conducting that investigation. As soon as they are done with the investigation, she either goes or she comes back.
Right. Finally, Prof, do you think the government is rattled by all that is going on?
No government, no leadership will not be disturbed by any kind of agitation on the part of the people, you know, because when you're in a position of leadership, you know, your primary objective, your innate desire is to draw the satisfaction of the people. And when the people are agitated, of course, you naturally will be disturbed, no matter how hard-hearted you are. So I believe that they are concerned, and that's why they are responding the way they do. I doubt if they are actually able to concentrate on any other thing apart from seeing that this protest comes to an end. You know, yeah, we are just hopeful once again that we'll be able to resolve things as quickly as possible so that we can concentrate on more important issues of statecraft.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.